What do you think? Okay. Hello, everyone. Take your seats. We're going to get started. On behalf of Families for Safe Streets and Evermore, we want to welcome you tonight. It's so good to see everyone in person and on live stream across the country. And if you are on live stream, feel free to put your location in the chat and what brings you here today. I think, I just want to acknowledge that so many of us are here for the worst possible reason, because we've lost someone that we thought we could never live without, and now we are trying to figure out how to continue our lives without them. And, that's what we're here to talk about today. So my name is Judy Kotick. I had to look at my notes to find out who I am. My name is Judy Kotick, and I lost my daughter, Ella, when she was 23 years old in 2013. She was hit by a MTA bus on the border of Brooklyn and Queens, and our whole lives were shattered. Our family, our friends, her friends. It's been almost 11 years, and I still can't believe I have to say those words. A year after Ella was killed, we found out that it was not an isolated event, as we had assumed, and we connected with a group of other family members who had also lost loved ones or been injured due to the unsafe conditions on New York City's roads, intersection, and even sidewalks. And we formed Families for Safe Streets, an organization that confronts the epidemic of traffic violence by advocating for life-saving changes and providing support to those who have been impacted by crashes. Our goal has always been, and still is, after almost 10 years, to prevent anyone else from experiencing our nightmare. During the first year of our existence, our efforts resulted in the lowering of speed limits in all 5 boroughs, a proven measure that saves lives, even though it was met with a great deal of resistance because people want to speed. They don't want to slow down. Over the years, our personal stories, combined with the advocacy savvy from our parent organization, Transportation Alternatives, have been a winning strategy for increasing awareness and improving street safety. We have also supported countless family members who are grieving lost loved ones, suffering painful injuries, and we've created this community through the group nobody wants to belong to. Other cities and states took note of our successes, and there are now 20 FSS chapters across the country, and a national organization is in the works. The devastation of traffic violence cannot be overstated, and if any of you have experienced this tragedy and are not already part of Families for Safe Streets, we encourage you to reach out to us. I first heard about Colin Campbell's when I read his article in The Atlantic this past March entitled, "What Losing My 2 Children Taught Me About Grief." Wow, I saw the title and was all ears. I was impressed with Colin's ability to put into words this most human of experiences, which non-grievers struggle to understand, and even grievers themselves are often at a loss to describe. Dealing with profound loss can be lonely and isolating, and Colin has set out to help us help our family and friends to support us so we feel less alone. As he explains in the article and in his play and book, which you should read, there are no words. A common refrain is a cop-out. There actually are words to describe our experiences and to comfort those of us in the throes of despair. And tonight we are fortunate that Colin is here to present his experiences and ideas with language and finding the words. So to start, Colin will perform an excerpt of his play, Grief, a one-man shit show, which has to be the most perfect title of any play ever written. Next, in a discussion with Evermore creator and executive director Joyal Mulheron, we'll hear about Colin's book, Finding the Words, Working Through Profound Loss with Hope and Purpose. And finally, we'll have a Q&A, and we ask that you jot down any questions or comments on the index cards we've provided, and we'll collect them after the book talk and try and address as many as possible. If you're on live stream, you can put your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll add them to the others. And before you leave, make sure to purchase and have Colin sign a book or bookmark and enjoy some refreshments. And now I'm honored to introduce Colin Campbell, who is a writer and director for theater and film. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Seraglio, a short film he wrote and directed with his wife, Gail Lerner. He has taught theater and filmmaking at Chapman University, Loyola Marymount University, Cal Poly Pomona University, and to incarcerated youth through the organization The Unusual Suspects. His one-person show, an excerpt of which we are about to see, premiered at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, where it won a Best of Broadway award. And before we start, I just want to remind everyone, all of us, to turn off our cell phones. And we're going to be making a video of this, so you don't have to take pictures or video anything. And Colin, welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Good evening. Yeah. I hope your night's been good so far. Yeah. Because I'm going to go ahead and ruin it. I'm going to talk about grief. Why? Because I'm angry and bitter, and I kind of want you all to suffer. And also because it's important, right? Grief is a central human experience that just doesn't get a lot of play. Our culture doesn't like to talk about it. So when grief strikes, people don't know how to navigate it. But we all need to know our way around grief. It's necessary because grief will come to you if it hasn't already. So you're going to want to pay attention. The fact is, if you love someone, you'll lose someone. Or they'll lose you. Either way, someone's getting fucked. Because everybody dies. And some people die a whole lot sooner than we planned. So talking about tragedy is a way for us, as a culture, to process it, to integrate it into our consciousness so it's not so confusing or scary or lonely when it strikes. So tonight, we're going to go on a journey together. And you are going to be taken to some uncomfortable places. You might even cry a little, I don't know, or laugh. Some people laugh when they feel uncomfortable. Plus, I got some jokes in here, so you might be laughing at those. The point is, it's entirely possible that at the exact same moment, some of you might be laughing while others are crying, and it might feel a little weird in here. But let's agree that tonight, this is a sacred space, and we're all in it together. Oh, and by the way, I don't save the horror for some dramatic third-act reveal. No, I wake up to the horror every morning, so I'm just going to dive right in. 4 years ago, my family was vacationing in Joshua Tree. It's a little town in the desert, the high desert, about 2.5 hours east of Los Angeles. It was me, my wife Gail, my 14-year-old son Hart, and my 17-year-old daughter Ruby. Over the years, we've gone out there a lot. All four of us loved the place, scrambling up these crazy rock formations. And on this particular trip, on a whim, we started looking at some properties, and all four fell in love with this little house nestled in the side of a hill. Spectacular views. It was going to be our desert getaway. We were going to build a huge pool. Ruby picked the perfect spot for it. And then a kid's bungalow with a room for Ruby to paint in and another one for Hart to game in with his friends. We made an offer, and it was accepted. So 3 nights later, we all piled back into the car and drove back out to the desert to survey our brand new vacation home. I was driving. Gail was in the front passenger seat. Hart was behind me, and Ruby was next to him. Ruby and Hart were actually secretly texting each other in the back seat. Hart was confessing that he was thinking about maybe getting back together with this girl who just broke up with him but was now acting all flirty. And Ruby was like, "No, don't you dare, brother. You stay strong." And Hart was like, "I know, but Rupe, I'm so weak. Help me." A drunk driver going 40 miles above the freeway speed limit T-boned us. The point of impact was the rear passenger door, Ruby's door. It caved in 2 feet. My car spun 540 degrees, almost 2 full rotations. The drunk driver was going so fast, her car flipped end over end, landed back on its blown-out tires. The front engine demolished and caught fire, and she didn't stop for another 150 feet down the road. She was so drunk and so high, she never even touched the brakes. She hit us at full speed, 90 miles an hour. She had a prior DUI. had a warrant out for her arrest for a violation of probation of that prior DUI. So that night she was driving illegally, without a license, without insurance, shouldn't have been behind the wheel under any circumstance, definitely not drunk and high and speeding, and now all my kids are dead. The phrase, all my kids are dead, just kind of sucks the air out of the room. People suddenly remember they're supposed to be somewhere, anywhere else. Shit gets triggered. You parents out there, you hear, all my kids are dead, and you get this panic in your groin, right? A kind of knot of terror. I know that feeling well. I used to get it all the time. See, Ruby and Hart used to love to climb rocks, like high up, scary-ass rocks. And every time, Gail and I would get that tightening in the crotch, and Gail would moan, oh, my womb. I missed that feeling. Now I just get this bottomless pit of yearning that opens up right here in my heart. Not so funny, I know. But take a breath. Stay with me, please. I want to share a little from the other side. I think I need to. Now, don't worry. It's not going to all be doom and gloom. We're going to find some places for humor tonight. Because in the face of terrible tragedy, we have to be able to laugh. We just do. Otherwise, it's too awful and scary, right? Grief is scary. I'm scary. I'm scary to look at, scary to think about, definitely scary to talk to. What are you going to say to me that's not going to come off wrong? Hey, Colin, how you doing? Oh, right. Because of what happened to your kids. Sorry. Any conversation with me must seem like a potential minefield. So I developed this spiel that I tell friends when they come over. I think it makes me seem less scary. Because when I'm not weeping, it's nice to see friends. So I tell them, I love talking about my kids. And I love talking about their kids. Because you see, a lot of people worry that if they even mention kids, it might trigger me. Like I might have forgotten. Kids? Oh my God! You just reminded me. My kids are dead. No, I haven't forgotten. You can't trigger me because I'm already triggered. I'm triggered all the way. It doesn't get more triggered than this. So I tell my friends they're off the hook. We can laugh, we can cry, we can talk about my kids, their kids. It's all safe. They can't make a mistake or say the wrong thing and accidentally upset me. Makes them feel better. But it's not entirely true. I mean, there are some things that do piss me off. Like apparently there's this catchphrase that everybody knows to use. When confronted by somebody suffering a terrible loss, the thing to say is, there are no words. Almost everybody does it. They come up to you, they look you in the eyes, and they hug you, and they say real slow and dramatic like, there are no words. What am I supposed to say in response to that? Nothing, right? Because apparently there are no words. Whoops. Just fixing the mic. There are no words. So I just nod and go, yeah. And then they nod back, real slow and dramatic, like, yeah. And then we're both just nodding at each other. Oh. And is that the best we can offer people in grief? More awkward silences? Because of course there are words. Ruby and Hart's friends all find words. They come up to me and they launch right in. Oh, I miss Hart so much. He was so funny and kind and sweet and crazy. Oh my God, he kept trying to get me to buy this automatic potato chip bag sealer. He was so crazy. Hart is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'll think about him and miss him and love him every day for the rest of my life. Those are some pretty good fucking words, right? Kids never say there are no words. It's only adults who don't know how to talk. Weird, right? When did adults become too scared to say words? When did our culture teach us to not talk to the grieving? And look, it's not like I was any better. No. If the situation were reversed, I wouldn't have the courage to say it to your face. No, I'd send you a card with a picture of a sad flower. And inside, in my crappy handwriting, there are no words. And then I just kind of mail it. Sometimes, of course, adults do reach for words, and it is worse when they grab for the wrong words. Words of comfort. Because, you see, when people see suffering, they are desperate to give comfort, desperate to stop the pain from happening because it's just too uncomfortable. So occasionally they say stupid shit, like, they're in a better place. Nope. They're children 6 feet underground in a wooden box. How is that a better place than, say, home, in bed, in my arms? What's better than being alive? And where is this better place? How does it work exactly? Nobody really breaks it down for you. Okay, you're talking about heaven, right? So holding hands with Grandma and Jesus, patiently waiting for me to die so we can all be happily reunited. I think after about 5 minutes of that shit, Ruby and Hart would be going out of their minds with boredom because they're kids, for Christ's sake. They got interests and energy and passions. They want to live. Ruby would be itching to get back to illustrating her graphic novel about a lesbian Jewish vampire who fights Nazis. And Hart, he'd be saying, let go of my hand already, Grandma and Jesus. Let me get back to crank calling Scientologists and talking about anal sex and fisting. But that don't fly in heaven, right? There are no lesbian digital art programs. There's no room for pornographic jokes. So sorry, my kids are too interesting for your better place. Besides, my kids are Jews. Jews don't actually believe in heaven. No, heaven was invented by Christians to make poor people feel good about their shitty lives by dangling the prospects of better times once they died of crucifixion or cholera or the plague or whatever awful death awaited the working poor of 2,000 years ago. But come on, does anybody really believe in this life after death, where the dead just kind of hover disembodied, waiting around for their relatives to die so they can all be happily reunited? That actually sounds pretty good. I'd love to believe that. Yeah. But it also sounds a whole lot like denial. I mean, if you actually believe that my kids are in a better place, why don't you knock off your own damn kids so they can spend more time with Grandma and Jesus? Nah, I didn't think so. So don't go peddling some bullshit fantasy you don't even believe in just because you're too scared of my grief and pain. Pain is okay. Pain is good. The reason it hurts so bad is because I love them so much. It's directly proportional. And when you say you want to take away my pain, you're asking me to love them less. And I can't do that. So I want my pain, even though it fucking sucks. And that brings me to the drugs. This is just water. You might not know this, but your kids get murdered and people send you drugs and booze. Like a lot. Like pounds and pounds of the stuff. We got edibles, joints, vapes, gummies, prescription pills, bourbon, gin, vodka, THC-laced bath bombs. The stuff just poured in day after day. And I get it. You know, you have a tough day at work and you want maybe a joint or a glass of wine, take the edge off. So losing your children is like a tough day at the office times, I don't know, a trillion. So clearly the thing to do is get shit-faced for 10 years straight. How is that going to help me? I mean, 10 years from now, I stagger out of my drug-induced haze and my kids are still dead. I think what those people are saying is, don't feel the pain. Stop grieving. Instead of just sitting with me and letting me feel my loss, they want to fix something that can't be fixed. And you might say, Colin, don't be so dramatic. They're just trying to be helpful, a joint, a glass of wine. It's not such a terrible betrayal of your precious grief. Relax, lighten up a little. And you'll be right. I do tend to overreact and get theatrical. But then again, my kids were killed by somebody who was drunk and high. So maybe drugs and booze aren't the best choice, if you thought about it for a minute. And plus, let's face reality, some people lose their kids and they drink themselves to death or overdose because it's just too lonely. And maybe you don't want to be the one handing me the means to that particular end. But look, all these bad ideas, they come from a good place. I mean, people are trying to give us comfort. But there is no comfort for me. My kids are gone. So instead, I need to find a way to live with a pain that doesn't seem to lessen and a grief that doesn't go away. And some days it's hard to live, like literally. Like, why am I alive? My kids are gone. I have no reason to live. Which is different, by the way, from being suicidal. You got to be careful when you talk to civilians about this stuff, or they run off and make frantic phone calls and you wind up in a padded cell. No. Suicidal is active, like with real plans. I'm talking about apathy, about emptiness, about a profound sense of being alone, about not wanting to live without my Ruby and heart. Some days it feels like my heart is only 1/4 in this world, and it's 3/4 in the underworld. And I'm wading around in the river Styx, chest deep, and it's pitch black, and I'm just searching, and I'm yearning for Ruby and heart. And that yearning is the worst. But being with friends who will listen, people who aren't scared to ask me about my grief, even talking to a room full of strangers about Ruby and heart, that actually helps me. You see, my mind can't fully comprehend that they are actually gone. It's too catastrophic to be believed. My brain needs to amortize the horror, stretch it out over years. And every time I talk about Ruby and heart, I chip away at that denial. But that denial is rough. Even now, there's a part of me that believes, if I do a really good job with this monologue, I really bare my soul, maybe, just maybe, I could get them back. That's why I got to keep talking about Ruby and heart. To keep telling my story. It's not that I'm so narcissistic that I think the whole world needs to know about my pain. No, I need to tell the whole world about my pain just so I can believe it and accept it as real. So, here is a sweet Ruby and heart story about anime and hip-hop. Every year, Ruby would go to the Anime Expo in full cosplay. We'd spend weeks going to all the fabric stores to find just the right material, and then Ruby would sew and build this amazing, elaborate costume. And Hart, he'd tag along all excited. He'd read all the books, he'd watch all the videos, he'd get jazzed about the latest edition of Death Note or Black Butler. He'd go all fangirl crazy with Ruby over Voltron or Attack on Titan. But the truth is, he didn't like any of it. He just pretended so he could spend time with his sister. And she had no clue. She thought he loved manga and anime. No. No, he loved hip-hop. He loved Juice WRLD and Comethazine, Little Skies and Ski Mask the Slump God. They'd sit in the back seat of my car, and Hart would eagerly share the latest music drop with Ruby. They'd listen together, their little heads pressed close. And Ruby would take one of his ear pods, and she'd watch on his phone the latest music video, and she'd ooh and ah, all excited. But the truth is, she didn't like any of it. No, she had zero hip-hop on any of her playlists. She kind of hated it. But she pretended so she could spend time with her brother. And he had no clue. They fooled each other so sweetly, out of love. And neither one ever found out the truth. It's nice telling Ruby and Hart stories. Tough, but nice. Even just saying their names out loud. Ruby and Hart. A lot of people are afraid to say their names. They worry that it might upset me, but actually the opposite is true. Hearing their names is a source of solace to me. I think that's true for just about anybody who's lost a loved one. That might be the one thing we all share in common. We all want to hear their names, desperately. It helps us to feel not so alone. Also, books help. When your kids get killed, people send you grief books. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I hope you don't, grief books are books written by people who've lost loved ones, and they offer their words of wisdom to the newly bereaved based on their own experiences of sorrow and misery. They're kind of like guidebooks to this new land of shit you find yourself in. And they got snappy titles like Shattered, Surviving the Worst That Can Happen, Surviving the Loss of a Child. And let's face it, they aren't exactly written by Pulitzer Prize-winning authors. They aren't page-turners. Find out how little Brittany died and how her parents lost all joy in life, but then, after years of weeping, managed to not kill themselves. If you didn't just lose a loved one, there'd be no reason for you to ever read these books. But Gail and I, we were hungry for them. Scared shitless. Yes, please tell us, what did they do to survive? And they're helpful. They're mostly helpful. Gail reads, "Oh, look, husband. This feeling we're having of losing our mind, of being terrified we'll never come back to reality, well, it turns out that's normal." Oh. I'm like, "Oh, look, wife. Here's a helpful tip. Drowning ourselves in drugs or booze or sex with strangers, that's not actually going to help us escape our grief." Because you can't escape grief. That's the deal. You can't short-circuit it, speed it up, slip past it. Nope. One way or another, sooner or later, you have got to grieve. And it hurts. You feel your heart break as you acknowledge the unimaginable. And you say goodbye to your children over and over and over again. But it sure helps to know you're not alone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're not alone, Colin. We're all with you
Thank you. Thank you.
in this room. That was so powerful, and for me, and I saw people nodding their heads, a lot of resonance in your words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was just an excerpt of my show. I've never done that before.
I have seen the whole thing, and next time you come, you'll do the whole thing for us.
Lights and sound.
Yeah. Because it's so powerful and helpful for those of us who need to feel understood. And I think that's what I get from your words, is to feel understood. And it's really rare as a bereaved parent to feel understood.
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you catch your breath for a
Yes,
few
take a
minutes?
sip of water.
And I'm going to introduce you to Joyal Mulheron, the Executive Director of Evermore, an organization that is dedicated to making the world a more livable place for bereaved people. It sounds so obvious. Of course, people experiencing major losses, injuries, and illnesses should be supported and given the space to grieve or recover, but we're not always. And you don't find out how hostile our society is on this point until you're in need yourself. Well, after the tragic loss of her daughter, Joyal set out to change the culture of bereavement on a policy level, and she has been a powerhouse. I first read about Joyal and Evermore a few years before the pandemic and was blown away by her vision and voice with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. We met up at some point and realized the alignment between our organizations, and I'm so thrilled that we've been able to work on this event together. Joyal is a Washington, D.C. public policy expert with more than 25 years of service to the nation's governors, the White House, and nonprofit organizations. She's worked with both Republican and Democratic lawmakers, as well as with corporate executives and policy advocates, in order to bring national attention to the devastating effects of bereavement. Like many of us, she has also experienced a tragic loss. Her daughter died after a terminal illness in 2010. Joyal is going to lead a discussion with Colin tonight, but before that, I want her to tell you more about her story, about Evermore, and her incredible accomplishments. And I also want to remind you to jot down your questions or to put them in the chat for the live stream. And now I'm honored to introduce my friend and colleague, Joyal Mulheron.
Oh, thank you, Judy. Oh, thank you. It's very generous. So I'll just say briefly that I started doing this work in 2013 after several high-profile death events. It was Trayvon Martin, Hydea Pendleton, Sandy Hook, the Jasper tornadoes, the Washington mudslide. Most mornings I was waking up and hearing the tragedy was striking families. And I thought that families were going to be told to go see a therapist or go to a support group. And I thought that those options were insufficient. And so I started talking to families in Washington, D.C., and walking up and down the streets, and people were inviting me into their homes and into their places of worship, into the police stations. And what I began to realize was this is a shared human experience that we just don't talk about. It's so obvious for all of us sitting here. But more than 85% of people started to share these very private stories with me. And that's when I began to realize that CDC collects mortality data, but they don't collect who survives those deaths and what the implications are. And over the last 10 years, the science of bereavement has advanced substantially. And I took that science to Capitol Hill in January 2020, pre-COVID, and I went to the Health Appropriations Committees and said, I think bereavement is a massive public health concern that is invisible in the United States and that our federal government should be doing more. And I won't get into all of the details and the policy nuances here, but we were able to attach provisions to the U.S. budget process, which in theory is the only budget or the only bill that Congress is supposed to pass in any given year. So we've begun forcing the federal government to pay attention to this issue. There are a number of things happening. That's not why we're here tonight. We're here for Colin, and we're here to celebrate in community and to be with one another. And so with that, I have also had the privilege of seeing Colin's play, and I would so encourage you, if you have an opportunity to see it. So many pieces of it resonated deeply with me, as well as his book, and we're gonna talk about that now. And as Judy said, please prepare your own questions. This isn't just what I think. This is also what you think, and also for the people who are joining us virtually. So I think one of the things that has struck me, I've met with thousands of people who've lost loved ones, is how you were so broken, and again, my words and that, so broken, and yet you have a play, you have a book, and you're here before us, and I'm just somewhat in awe, frankly, of you, and how you have managed to weather this terrible tragedy. Can you share more?
Yeah. So it was really like a week after the crash, and I just I'm a theater kid, so I'm a theater director and a playwright, and I just started writing, and I thought it was going to be like a stand-up routine. Honestly, I thought it was going to be like the darkest stand-up you could possibly imagine. I had a lot of rage, right? So I was just like, this is going to be so crazy. People are going to just like lose it. I don't know why, but that's what I was thinking. And I wrote about 2 pages, and I handed it to my wife, Gail, and I said, what do you think about this? And she said, I love it. Keep writing. And I just kept writing it, and what I performed tonight, with the whole show, really, I finished within 6 months after the crash. So I really just, I journaled every day for the first year. And in addition to that, I was writing this monologue, which then turned into a solo show. So it's not a stand-up routine. It's like a piece of theater, and there's props and things. But I was going to perform it. So this was so still very fresh in grief. It was going to be March 2020, and literally 2 days before I was going to perform, I was invited 50 friends. So first I performed it in front of 2 dear friends of mine, and it was terrible. It was like I was in acute pain, sharing all the stuff and just weeping and falling apart in front of them. And they were falling apart because they were also grieving Ruby and Hart and me, and my wife. So it was terrible torture. But I was like, I don't care. I'm going to still do it. Invite more people. And then COVID happened and shut down. Thankfully for my production, not thankfully for anybody else, but my show was benefited. And then in lockdown, I still had this need to express and process my thoughts and grief. It seemed like such a catastrophic thing. I had to process it in words, and so that I wrote the book. And the book is very different. It's genuinely trying to be helpful. The play comes from rage or acute grief, and the book is really trying to crystallize the lessons I learned about grieving, largely through the Jewish traditions of mourning. So I'm not Jewish, but my wife is Jewish. We raised Ruby and Hart as Jews. They got bar and bat mitzvahed. And my family is these wasps who are super grief averse. We're like the stereotype. I just don't talk about it at all. And so when Ruby and Hart were killed, I was like, I can't do the wasp thing. That's not going to work. I'm not going to pretend that they're not dead. So what do? And I leaned on the Jewish traditions, and I learned so much. I literally learned how to grieve, and what it meant to grieve in community, and I sort of share a lot of those thoughts that I had about it in the book.
It's beautiful. I learned so much, and wish that I had some similar traditions. Tell us about some of those rituals from the book that you think helped facilitate some of the coping.
Yeah. So the Jewish tradition marks the end of Shloshim. Shloshim is the first 30 days after the funeral, and you mark it with a ceremony. And they're very prescriptive about everything else up to that point. But that ceremony, the marking of the end of Shloshim, they don't give you any direction. They're just like, you got to mark it somehow. And we're like, oh, okay. And that allowed us to invent our own ritual. So we're like, what kind of ritual would we want that would be meaningful to us and to Ruby and Hart? And so there was this park that they loved to go to called the LA Arboretum, and there's this wild corner of it that's sort of, it's hard to get. We saw a family of coyotes run past it. So I was like, wow, this is wild out here in this park. And there's 2 beautiful trees that there are, Engelmann and oaks, their branches intertwined like they were hugging each other. And so we dedicated those 2 trees to Ruby and Hart, and we gathered our friends, and we told stories, funny and sad stories about Ruby and Hart in the park, and peacocks, and someone sang a beautiful song, and someone had a guitar, and the rabbi came and said some prayers. We all held hands, listened, and it was this powerful ceremony, and that kind of got me hooked on ritual as a way to get through the tough days. To get through any tough day, I have some kind of a ritual of some sort.
In your book, you reference a website where people can submit rituals.
Yeah.
I think, would you mind offering the website here?
Yeah, no, it's colincampbellauthor.com. And yeah, there's an email. You can email me there your rituals. Only one person has actually emailed. I've heard people.
Really?
But only one has actually sent the email. They said, "Okay, you told me to do it, so here it is." And they said, "I was like, okay." It was nice. I heard an amazing ritual just the other day. A grief group had a book club, and they chose my book as a book club. And I virtually joined them. They're all virtual, and for their book club discussion. And this one woman shared her ritual, and I loved it. But now I'm spacing on it. It's so embarrassing. It's like a terrible story.
No, it'll come.
This is an amazing ritual. What was it again? Oh my God, that's just going to kill me.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. It'll come back to me. Let me think for a second if it comes to me. Yes. Okay, got it. Phew. She invited her friends over, And she gave them postcards that were made out to her, stamped. And on the other side, she told them to paint watercolors. So all her friends had this ritual gathering. So she was with community, grieving the loss of her child, with these friends of hers. And they were all painting, expressing themselves in artistic ways. And then they'd go home, and she said, mail them to me throughout the year. So she gets them through the whole year. Every, once a month or something, one of them comes. And she's like, I love opening the mail now because of that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's genius. That's like a brilliant idea.
That is beautiful.
It's got everything, art, community, and then you get love periodically.
I mean, most of the book, you do talk about community so much.
Yeah.
And I think community, in my experience and being with families, this is such a difficult thing because it's not that you just lose your loved one.
Right.
For many of us, we begin losing all the people around us.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more from the book?
Yeah. So again, the Jewish rituals taught me about community. I thought previously, you're in grief, you just go away your own little corner and you're sad until you're somehow fixed, then you come back and join and then I learned that's not how it works actually when it's working well. And so the Jews, they sit Shiva. So the first 7 nights after the funeral, your community comes to you every night and sits with you. And our wise rabbi turned to us and said, do you want to say anything to the assembled people? And at the time, initially I was like, what, they're coming to my house? Like, no. I know, this is a terrible idea, but I trusted the Jews. I'm like, okay, they know what they're doing. It's been thousands of years. I'm going to go for it. Whatever the rabbi tells me, I'm going to do it. And I'm grateful that I did. So I said, okay, fine, bring them over. This is terrible. But then when she said, do you have anything to say to them? I said, oh my God, I do. I want to talk about Ruby and Hart. I want to talk about my grief because I've been stewing in my head all day, horrible, confused thoughts about what is happening. Oh my God, how is this real? I can't believe this. And then I get to talk to people who love me and who love Ruby and Hart, and then they shared stories. And I became addicted to this. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. People are telling stories about Ruby and Hart. We're laughing, we're crying. And then Shiva ends and they go away. And I'm like, oh shit, I want more people. And they would come to my house and they'd be terrified to say anything. They would walk in the front door and they would just be like, they wouldn't even say hi because they were worried that would upset me. Like, hi, fuck you. They didn't know. They wouldn't say Ruby and Hart's names, right? And so I developed the grief spiel, which I mentioned in the show. It's more elaborate in the book. But I basically pulled people aside one at a time and told them, here's the deal. I need to talk about Ruby and Hart. I need to talk about my grief. I can talk about something else for 5 minutes, but the conversation has to circle back to my grief because it's like I have a spear through my chest and blood spurting out, and how can you not talk about it, right? We can't just talk about the weather, no. And also, I don't give a shit about your favorite cat who died, or your cousin who died 10 years ago, or your dad who had a heart attack at 60. Fuck your dad. Because I was in acute grief. I didn't have space for anybody else's pain and loss, you know what I mean? It's just real. Now I do. But at the time, I did not. And people would say they would share it in an effort to connect to me. They'd be like, oh, you're in horrible pain. Well, my cousin died 10 years ago. I'm like, what the fuck do I care about that? No. Ruby and Hart. Stay on topic. But my friends were so grateful that I was giving them direction. I got immediate positive feedback of thank God you told us what to say because we have no idea. We're scared. And they felt like they didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore. And we could have real conversations that was nourishing to me.
Yeah, one of the other things that I thought that you did so brilliantly too was cultivate community. That you, whenever anyone invited you to do something, what did you do?
Yeah. Well, I had this feeling. So someone would say hey, do you want to take a walk with me tomorrow? I'd be like, tomorrow? I have no idea. I have no idea what I'll be like 10 minutes from now. I'm bouncing around. I can't commit to anything. But then I realized I would be saying no to everybody, right? And I would just be all alone. And I was desperate for community. So I made a policy just to help. I also had a hard time making decisions in early grief. So my policy was say yes to everything. No matter what they say yes to it. That helped me. Someone said, want to take a walk next week? Yes. And I could cancel last minute. That wouldn't be a big deal. But I usually didn't. I usually did it. So I did all sorts of crazy, weird things that I'd never done before. But it was a way to say yes to people and give them, they want to help me. They don't know what to do. I don't know what to ask for. But if they suggest something and I say yes, then that's something we can have together. That helped me.
So for so many of us, when we lose someone who's so significant in our lives, we struggle with identity. And you talk about some of those struggles in the book. Can you share how you have adapted?
Yeah, I feel like identity is like an ongoing thing that gets rocked with profound loss. And so at first, I didn't want to be a dad with dead kids. I didn't want that. I didn't want to be that. Like, I was like, no. I went to my first grief group 3 weeks after the crash, and I was looking, I don't belong here with these shattered people. These are not my people. You know what I mean? But then, over time, I was like, oh, no, that is me. I am, and then I sort of clung to that. Like, I am the father of 2 kids who were killed by a drunk driver. That's how I introduced myself to people. It's like, that was my identity. And then it shifted again after 2 years, maybe, and suddenly I realized, oh, I'm not just that. I'm other things as well, and I'm not going to introduce myself first thing with that necessarily. I might not lead with that anymore, and that was difficult to navigate. That hurt. I feel like, am I abandoning my grief? Am I abandoning Ruby and Heart by not like front loading it aggressively? And I'm not. I'm living with grief, but I think all those steps of identity are painful that we have to go through. It's evolving.
Right.
It's evolving.
And so through the evolution of your identity, how have you found meaning and purpose?
Sorry, that's like a big one.
It is a big one, isn't it? Yeah.
Meaning and purpose. So I felt really strongly that life had no meaning and purpose for me after Ruby and Heart were killed. I really didn't see what the point was, and neither did Gail. But I didn't like it. I described myself being untethered. I felt untethered to life. Like, I didn't really give a shit. Like, when COVID came, I was like, yeah, welcome to my world, and maybe we're all going to die. That's all right. I just untethered, and I didn't like it. I didn't like that. That was uncomfortable for me to feel that. And so I kind of aggressively do everything with grief, I guess, but I aggressively pursued meaning and purpose. I was like, it's not just going to come to me. I'm going to have to go out there and try and find it. And I was inspired by Viktor Frankl's words. He's a Holocaust survivor, and he writes about how we find meaning and purpose outside ourselves, in other people. And that really resonated for me. I wasn't going to sit at home and think, like, why am I here? I had to, like, help, be of service, to help other people, be connected to other people. And that powered the book. I really wrote the book because, as you alluded to earlier, like, I was going to these grief groups, and they would say, you're going to lose all your friends. I was like, oh my God, Jesus, that too? Like, yeah.
And your
You'll
marriage.
see. Yeah, your marriage.
And your
Yeah, people
marriage.
think, your marriage is going to fall apart, by the way. Do you know that?
Yeah.
What? Fuck you. People would say that to me. And it's not true, by the way, the statistics. They're not as dire as people think they are.
That's right.
People do get divorced, of course, but people get divorced all the time, not just because of grief. So the grief divorce statistics are only slightly worse over time than the general population. Anyway, I've got lots of feelings about grief and grieving, but I reacted against it. I was like, I'm not going to lose my friends and family. I'm not. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep them, because I know they love me. I know they love Ruby and Heart, and I know if I were in their shoes, I would fail me, because I was grief averse. I was not a good friend to people in grief. I wasn't. And so I have a tremendous empathy for people who have a hard time connecting to me or talking to me because they're scared, because I was there. I was that person for sure. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just do everything I can to stop that. And I really feel like we have, Gail and I, we have been able to maintain our friends and family, even though we struggle. We still struggle, but no one's disappeared. We've never written anybody off. We wanted to. Like, fuck her, forget it. We don't need her ever again. And then I was like, wait a minute. She loves us. She loves Ruby and Heart. What can we do to fix this? How can we reach out and instruct, teach? Because that's what we have to do as grievers. We have to teach, because our culture doesn't teach people. So it's up to us. And we are the only ones who know our needs. And our needs change. So I really feel like it is kind of on us to educate our community about what we need and what it is to grieve.
I'm really struck with how generous you are, both in the play and in the book as well. I feel that you're always thinking about the other person and how they must be coming to this issue. You address a question in the book that some call the question.
Oh, yeah.
And could you share sort of your insight on how you answer that?
Yeah. So the question is, how many kids do you have? Or, are you married, right? Or what do your parents do? Or how many siblings do you have, right? We get hit with that question. And what's our answer? And if it's a casual moment in the grocery store, what do we do with that, right? How unfair is that? And I feel like it's so important that we're gentle with ourselves, that we take care of ourselves. What do we need? It's not about them. They don't need to know anything. We don't owe them anything. But do we want to? Do we want to share in that moment or not? And I find I like to share, obviously. So I'm comfortable. Not. Some people worry like, oh, it's going to be a downer, and I'm like, yeah, but that's life, So I don't apologize. I don't be like, my kids were killed, but it's okay. I don't do the but it's okay part. I just say, So my answer is very complicated. So my wife and I are fostering to adopt 2 teens. So the full answer is I have 4 children, and 2 of them were killed by a drunk driver. Ruby and Hart and Andrew and Gladys are my children. So that's the full version, but I don't owe them that if I don't need to. I can say whatever I want in the moment. But I will say I had this moment just like a month ago. I was at a bereaved Parents Association conference, and I was in a taxi cab ride back to the hotel. And it was late at night. I was talking to the cab driver, but through the thing, and we just started talking about his family. And he has 2 daughters, and he was talking about them, and interesting. And then he said, do you have kids? And I said, I do. I gave him the full answer. I have 4. 2 of them were killed. And then he opened up about his grief. He lost, I think, a sibling, and he shared about that. And so suddenly we had this amazing connection in a cab drive, which normally you don't, right? You don't talk to the Uber or the cab person, not in a real way. And then afterwards, he got out of the cab, and he gave me the luggage from the trunk, and then we shook hands. And we just had a real human experience that was really beautiful. So I like the PSA part of like drunk driving, right? Just maybe someone's going to hear that, and they're going to think twice about going to a bar with their car. Why not take an Uber to the bar, right?
Well, one of the pieces of advice in the book is that you can blame and you can say Ruby and Hart told you not to drink and drive.
Yeah. I gave this speech to Hart's school. Hart's school did this beautiful celebration of life for him. They invited the whole school, and I spoke at length, and then I told him so. I hope. Tragically, there was another loss in that same community. A senior, her brother, was killed by a drunk driver a month after Ruby and Hart. So this community was suffering two deaths from drunk driving. Well, actually, were they high? I think they were high, that killer. But the point is, impaired driving took the lives of these 2 people in this community. And so I said, I hope you're never going to drink and drive, right? Like, hello, right? You guys get it, right? And if you had a, I said, now here's the tough part. You got to be adults. So not only do you not have to drink and drive, but you have to go to a party. You go to a party, you see some kid getting drunk, and they're driving. You got to take their keys away. Sorry, you're an adult now. And if it's hard, just say, Ruby told me. I have to take your keys away.
And this is why the work of Families for Safe Streets and the advocacy that the group has been doing is so important, because there is an epidemic of intoxicated driving and driving with cell phones and so forth, and there's real implications for too many of us.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, it's worse in America. Like, so I have friends who are deep dive in this stuff, and drunk driving deaths are going down in much of the world, and they're going up in America. And there's something about our culture that thinks it's cool, it's okay, let's all go drive to the bar. And it's like, what? You should be like, no, don't drive to the bar. That's a bad, don't drive to the party. But we don't, it's not in our culture yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So I know there's some questions, and also if you have a moment to submit your questions, we would love to hear them.
You should come onto camera for the question. Can you do that?
Yes, I'm going to
you're going to pass it over.
pass them to you. I just wanted to thank the two of you for modeling how to talk about grief, because, you know, it's such a beautiful example, and people really don't know how in our culture, just like you said. I mean, they think that, you know, after a month or two, or maybe they give you a year.
Right.
You know, that if you look the same and you sound the same, that, you know, you're good to go. You're back to your normal self, and they never ask you again.
Right.
So, you know, this is incredibly helpful. We have some questions, and I think we're still collecting them. Okay.
1 minute.
Oh, this is a good one, actually. Whoever did this last one. Joyal, do you want?
Okay,
I'll
sure.
give you a few, and then.
This is Sure. Do you dream about Ruby and Heart?
Oh. Yeah, it's tough. I do dream about Ruby and Heart, and the tough part is, as far as I know, right, we don't know about all our dreams, right, but the ones that I remember, in the dream, I remember that they're dead. I've never had a dream that I know of where they stayed alive in the dream. So I have these nice moments. Sometimes I have a moment with like Heart, and like he and I are grieving the death of Ruby. And we're like, oh, it's so hard. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you're dead too. And then I wake up. So they're always tough, but they're also nice. I got hugged by them once in my dream, and then I remember they're dead. But I got the hug first. So yeah, I do now and again. I love that.
Have you had an experience when your grief spiel had been ineffective, and then how have you handled these different situations?
Yeah. So, in the moment, the grief spiels have always been successful. I've never had somebody fail me in that moment. And I don't really give the grief spiel anymore, because I don't have the same needs. I can have a conversation about your dead cat or anything in politics. I don't need to circle back to Ruby and Heart immediately anymore. But I do want to talk about Ruby and Heart. So at a certain point, I do want to talk about them. But I don't need to give the spiel. But there are friends of mine who have heard the spiel, and then I talk about it in the book. We had like the very beginning of the pandemic. There were these like Friday night Zoom cocktails. I don't know if you guys were part of that thing. So everyone wanted to have Zoom cocktails Friday night, and we met up for the first time, and this is only about 6 months after the crash, right? So it's still early in my grief, and all these people on this Zoom, I'm friends with them only because their kids were friends with Ruby and Heart. That's the only reason why I'm friends with them. I would never have met them otherwise. And we're on this Zoom, and nobody mentioned Ruby or Heart. And nobody asked me what was it like to be in lockdown alone. Everyone else's families are all together, forced to be together, and complaining about it. And I don't get to be with my family. All I want is to be forced to be together with Ruby and Heart. And no one mentioned anything. So I sent an email. First I was like, fuck you, never going to talk to them again. And I was like, wait a minute. They love me, they love Ruby and Heart. They're just failing. So I sent an email, and it's in the book.
Your very generous self sent a very nice email.
I sent a very nice email full of love. This is what I need, please help me. And they wrote back beautiful emails. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Of course, we were thinking about them nonstop. We couldn't handle it, and we were chicken shit, and so sorry. We'll be better friends. And all this, and then they did. They were better friends on the Zoom. And that was nice. That was beautiful. But then, 6 months later, we get together again. They don't mention Ruby and Heart. I'm like, oh my God, guys, come on. But so I don't know. We got to keep reminding some people, because they're scared. They got scared again. It's like, how did you get scared again? Like, come on. You saw my one-man show, by the way, right? This is post my one-man show. You've heard the grief books. You heard the grief spiel. You got my book. You saw my show, and you're still not talking about Ruby and Heart. Come on.
Can you share? Gail had a specific way of her grief spiel and going back to work. Can you just share a little about that?
Yeah. So I include a bunch of emails and letters in the book, because I just thought finding the words, I shared exactly the words we use. Not that they were so great, but just to see, like, because I felt lost in early grief. No one was telling me what to do. I had no guidance. All the grief books I read initially, a lot of them were like, whatever you're doing is great. You do you. Don't feel bad about grieving. I'm like, I don't feel bad about grieving. I feel bad because I don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, so I include these letters, and Gail sent an email to her work colleagues because she knew that some of the people in her grief, in her workplace, they did believe that Ruby and Hart were in a better place. That helped them in their grief. And she wrote this email that said, if that helps you, I love that. That's beautiful, but please don't say that to me. So she's very specific about her needs. And she's a comedy writer and a comedy director for television and the film now. This was a comedy, this was Blackish, the TV show Blackish. And she was terrified that people would think she wasn't funny anymore. How are you going to be funny? Your kids are dead, right? And she didn't know if she could be funny. But she's like, shit. So she put some jokes in the email. So I'm like, see, I'm still funny. I can still make jokes. So it was important to her to introduce that. And then also to say, like, she was terrified of the idea of getting there and everyone just not saying anything, right? And just whispering, and no one mentioning Ruby and Hart. So she said, please come up to me. Tell me, you know Ruby and Hart. You all met Ruby and Hart. You've heard my stories. Part of being a comedy writer is you share your own personal stories. So she told Ruby and Hart stories endlessly in that. I don't know if you know the show Blackish, but the two Diane and Jack, a lot of them are Ruby and Hart. A lot of their stories are Ruby and Hart stories.
Wow.
And the fact they did at the end of that season, they did a beautiful tribute to Ruby and Hart. They had a Jack and Diane scene that was like literally Ruby and Hart dialogue. And then at the very end it said, in honor of Ruby and Hart.
Oh.
So beautiful. And Ruby, the character of Grandma, is named after Ruby, by the way. The grandma of Blackish is named after Ruby. So they knew them. So they have stories to tell. They can tell Gail stories. And so she asked for them and she got them, and that helped her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's a quality of Ruby and Hart that you would like to emulate, or that you do emulate?
Yeah, thank you. Fierce kindness. They were really fiercely kind. And it's not an exaggeration. I remember I went to pick up Ruby from her school. She struggled with OCD and depression and suicidality. And she wound up at a special school that's called Fusion. It's like one-on-one teaching for people who have extra anxieties at school. But they have groups that they meet they have a shared space. And there was bullying at that school because that school attracted people who were super brilliant but super awkward at school. That was Ruby. And then all the bad kids that did lots of drugs and got kicked out of other schools got stuck in that school. And so all the tough drug-using cool kids picked on the nerds. And Ruby, once she got the right medication and blossomed, she became like this rock star of power. She was like a super badass lesbian warrior for social justice. Yeah. She was. And she had such an authority, and she was so cool. She had blue hair, and like she was just a badass warrior. She did Muay Thai, and she ended bullying at that school.
Wow!
Because she would champion the little nerds. She called them her little little nerds. I forget what she called them. She had some affectionate term. Little geniuses. She wouldn't say nerds. She'd say geniuses. They're my little geniuses. She'd protect all the little geniuses from the mean kids. But she was so cool that the mean kids loved her. She was an amazing artist, and they all wanted to be like her. So, and a teacher came out and said, "You don't understand. Ruby has ended bullying at this school. You don't get it." This is when she was alive. So it wasn't like, because she was dead. It was real. And Hart, he was this champion. He was this amazing ally. So he was straight, but he was an amazing ally to Ruby. And I heard him playing video games with his boys. And if you ever heard 14-year-old boys playing video games, there's a lot of they easily slide into homophobia. It just happens. And Hart would be like, hey, no. That's not cool. Don't use that F word. I overheard him saying that to his friends. It was so badass. He's so cool kid.
He is a cool kid.
There was all this outpouring of appreciation for how kind he was to all the kids at school when he died.
There's an award.
Yeah. Now there's a Hart Campbell Kindness Award at his school.
Yeah, it's really special.
Yeah. So kindness.
Yeah, kindness. Thank you, Judy.
Good quality for all of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, here's an important question.
Yeah.
Are you performing your show in New York City? And are you looking for a theater?
Oh, nice. I love that. Well, if you're a theater impresario, yes. But But I did my show in New York. I had a month-long run at the Theater Row, which is a small little space, but we got nice reviews and big houses, and it was great. But I'm always interested in performing it. Yes.
Remind me what the
Yes.
Times said about your show.
Oh, unforgettable. Come on, the New York Times is unforgettable. That's nice. I get to keep that forever, right?
How was the process of writing the book and the play for you? Did it help or was it agonizing?
Both, yeah. I wept every day I wrote the book. And I wept every day I revised the book. Yep. And I wept every day that I rehearsed the play. And I wept while I wrote the play. Yep. I remember. Yeah. But it also it was me processing my grief and me searching for meaning and purpose. So I felt a need to share it. And when I first wrote the play, it was really about me and my rage. But I found really wonderful responses from audience members who have lost loved ones, that they felt like I was saying things that they thought about. I say a lot of very dark, ugly things in the play. I didn't share those parts because it seemed like a weird excerpt. I go deep dive into ugly, comparing grief thoughts, like really like the worsts of the worst. And then I come out of it, and I come to a place of grace and empathy. But I go there because I went there, and I feel like we all go there, and we're all scared of it, and people really were grateful. I was at first nervous. I was like, I'm sharing all these ugly things. I get the audience to laugh at people with dead kids. And I was like, oh my God, like, what do you laugh? I get to laugh. You don't get to laugh at this stuff. but no, it's helpful. And people really, I was scared at first that people would be angry. But they weren't. They're all very great so far. Maybe some of you are pissed off. But they were very grateful that I was talking about all these ugly feelings, because they had them too, and they felt seen. They felt seen.
Absolutely. So we have three more questions. And I'm so glad that someone asked this question, because I wanted to ask this of you as well. What makes your book, Addressing Grief, different from many others, possibly the ones you were, quote unquote, bombarded with, that I took that you were not happy about?
Yeah. So in the end, I make fun of the grief books, but then at the end I do say that I'm deeply grateful for them. I got a lot out of many of those grief books. Bearing the Unbearable by Joyal Mulheron, I sent it to my entire family as a way to say, like, we're grieving. This is how we're going to grieve, actively grieve. And It's Okay, You're Not Okay by Megan Devine was really helpful to me. Yeah. But I got something from every grief book, I think. Pretty much. I got something from everyone. But I felt like I needed to write mine because, as I alluded to earlier, a lot of the grief books, their main focus is to make you feel okay about grieving. They're like, whatever you're doing is okay. Everyone grieves differently, and it's all cool. And I felt like that doesn't really help me personally. Maybe it helps other people, but it didn't help me. I wanted someone to just talk about some structure, some like, what do I do? What am I actually doing as I grieve? And so I thought that was worth sharing. And then another aspect was a lot of the books felt like they were written by somebody who was grieving a loss a long time ago. Like they lost the parent like 10 years ago, and they're sharing, and they have a real kind of like a whitewashing of the pain. I felt like, and I was like, I wrote it in early grief, and it's somebody who's still wrestling with those issues, and it's very real. And I try not to sugarcoat stuff. I try not to like say like this is easy, right? Or like, and then time passes and voila. And so I think that makes a difference. And the other difference is that I really focus on community, on steps, concrete steps that one can take to stay in community as you grieve and not be abandoned by your loved ones who are failing because they just don't know any better.
Absolutely. Could we also add that at the end how you've structured the book, which I think is unique?
Oh,
Could
okay.
you mention that?
Yes.
Like how there's lessons?
Oh, yeah. So each chapter deals with what I think is like a major issue that I worked through. So one's rage, one's guilt, one's holidays, one's ritual, because I need ritual, one's community. So each chapter is something that I was just dealing with. And that ends with prompts, with first journal prompts, So you can just sort of write about things that you're struggling with, and then also actual things you can do, activities you can do, rituals you can take, just actions, taking action in grief. I find that so often, if I'm just lying in bed, I feel like I'm a passive victim, and I just feel crushed by it. But if I can take action in grief, it feels like I have some kind of agency, and it really helps me. It really helps me. So I provide lots of different ideas for actions.
So we're just going to take one last question, and then Colin will be available afterwards. I'll be here too, but I'm not sure I'm nearly as interesting as you.
Well, that's not
all
true.
right, so.
This is the first time I've ever been interviewed by a fellow bereaved parent, by the way. It's very special.
Oh, and it's
very
unfortunate.
special. Yeah, it's unfortunate, right, right.
We should not have
should
to
not-
have
no.
met under these circumstances.
But it's different, right?
It is
It's
different.
yeah.
It is different. So, thank you for asking this question. You briefly meditate on the notion of heaven, if it's real or not, and whether you want it anyhow. Do you believe in signs from your children, or have
Yeah.
you had experiences?
Yeah. So, just as my personal journey, I don't mean to be prescriptive at all, but I find that I do have signs. So Ruby loved Hotel California. She heard that someone said that at every moment, 24 hours a day, it's playing somewhere in America, and she loved that idea. And she's like, I'm going to have a radio station that does that nonstop, just in case, to make sure, guarantee that Hotel California is playing somewhere in America at all times. So when that comes on, obviously, I'm like, oh, Ruby, hi, yeah. But there's a part of me that's like worried about signs, and it's just me. I'm nervous emotionally. If I get too wrapped up in signs, what's going to happen if I don't see a sign? Will I feel like, oh, they're not here with me anymore? Why aren't they here with me? So I try to tread really lightly with signs, just me personally, and I love it when a butterfly, nice, maybe that's a sign or something, but I try not to yearn for a sign. I'm already yearning for them, and so, and then the heaven thing, I don't know. I'm kind of like a spiritual atheist, so I don't really, but I sure love the idea, but I don't spend too much time thinking about a possible reunion. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, here's Colin's book, Finding the Words, Working Through Profound Loss with Hope and Purpose. And if you don't have a copy, I would encourage you to get it. It's an incredibly moving book. There's so many passages in it. I found myself laughing and crying. I'm quite a fan of Ruby and Hart as myself now.
pretty great.
So thank you. Where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm on Instagram at Colin Campbell Writer, and I'm on www.colincampbellauthor.com. I don't know why I didn't make them the same, but I screwed up, so they're different. So author.com and writer at Instagram. And then griefforOneManShitShow.com is my show, but the show and the book are linked. There's a button on both of them that takes you to either one.
So we are so appreciative, and thank you so much for having us, Judy,
Yeah.
and organizing this event.
Yes.
There's one more activity we're supposed to do.
Yes, but first
Oh.
of all, before we do that, I just want to say this has been so moving and powerful, and listening to this discussion makes me think that maybe we, as a collective community that we are tonight, can all agree to ask someone we know who's lost someone or been injured or has had an illness how they're doing. All you have to do is say, how are you? And if they want to tell you, just to listen. That's what we'll all do when we leave. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now we're going to do our own ritual.
Yes, we
Colin's
concocted
gonna
our
help
own
us.
ritual, which is so exciting. We're going to ask everybody who is grieving somebody who has died or who has been injured in a specifically, I guess, a car crash, but like any injury really.
Yeah.
But if you're a traffic injury, or to stand up and then we're going to say the names one at a time. And so it's going to be a little tricky to know who's next, but what are we going to do? Yeah, anyone who's grieving the loss of somebody or somebody who is injured, we're going to stand and we're going to honor that grief that we're all holding by starting in oh, shoot.
It's all right.
That's just water. There's no comics. Maybe we'll start in the back. Yes, we'll start in the back with you, sir, and we'll go that way, and we'll snake around, then we'll go back here and snake around.
My daughter, Sarah Katz.
Seth Khan. My husband, Ron Phillip.
Jessica Bowman.
Kate Rockwell. Charlie Parker. William Robertson.
My kids, Cora Dawson and Callan.
Rita C. and Lita Sinma. Frankie Morris Press. My daughter, Lily. My grandson, Sammy. Sammy Cohen at the start. My mom, Ida. My mom, Judy. My son. Maddie Sershin.
Michelle and Andreas, who I saw today. They're families, especially.
My parents, Linda and Brad Barrier.
Andrew and David. My son, Jacob Wechsler.
My daughter, Ella Kotick Bandies.
My son, Andrew. My son, Max. My daughter, Ella.
My daughter, Princess Butler.
My cousin, Cooper Stock. My son, Cooper Stock.
My brother, Russell Ferber.
My wife, Jean McCann.
My son, Adrian Vergelli. My cousin, Karina. My mother, Karina. My daughter, Karina. Jean Lukowitz. My son, Harris. My son, Victor. My dad, my grandmother. My son, Alex. My brother, Justin.
My son, Hart. My daughter, Ruby.
My daughter, Eleonora.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's a lot of grief.
Yeah.
I'm going to light a candle for all of our loved ones.
There's a safety switch. Yeah.
For all of our loved ones and people who've been injured and had illnesses, thinking about you.
Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody who's been involved in doing this, the staff from Families for Safe Streets and Evermore, and the people at People's Forum who've been so welcoming. Thank you so much. And before we all leave, I'm going to read a grief blessing. It's a Native American Apache blessing. May the sun bring you new energy every day, bringing light into the darkness of your soul. May the moon softly restore you by night, bathing you in the glow of restful sleep and peaceful dreams. May the rain wash away your worries and cleanse the hurt that sits in your heart. May the breeze blow new strength into your being, and may you believe in the courage of yourself. May you walk gently through the world, keeping your loved one with you always, knowing that you are never parted in the beating of your heart. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh.